Hey vlog, it is Sunday and I am just about to start out my vlog. I am checking in immediately after finishing out my last vlog, so you can go check that out. I'll leave it linked. We are starting my Romantasy vlog. Throughout 2025, I do want to branch out a little bit, so I have been collecting different subgenres of Romantasy to read throughout the year. This month particularly, I'm going to be just reading some really popular ones. These are ones that are literally just fantasy, romance. And the three options that I have, the first one is When the Moon Hatched by Sarah A. Parker. This is the one I know the least about. As far as I'm aware, we're in a world where there were dragons and they all flew up into the sky, became balls, and are now moons. And then I assume that one of said moons is going to hatch. I don't know what type of romance it is. I don't know the tropes. I know nothing about this. I have been told that it's going to be quite pleasant on the brain. It's got like a nice writing style. I think it's one that I'm going to sink into really nicely. I'm really excited for this one. This is the one I'm probably going to start with as it is the chunkiest. It's about 500 and something pages, which is a lot for Romantasy, but I'm excited nonetheless. The next one that I have is Guild by Raven Kennedy. This one is a King Midas retelling in which we are following a young woman named Orin who is gold touched by Midas, so he keeps her in a cage amongst all of his other valuable gold touched belongings. But she's actually happy to be in the cage because she was mistreated in the outside world, so she feels safe in the cage and she believes that Midas loves her, which he does, but he doesn't love her. He loves the fact that she's made of gold. And then one day she is being moved. I can't remember exactly why. And she either gets taken or left behind. Then she has to face the outside world for the first time by herself. I'm really excited for this one. I've heard that the first book feels almost like a prequel, and I don't know how much of the actual romance is in the first one. It's a 6-book series, but I am excited to see how I feel about it nonetheless. And then the last book that I have on here is The Crimson Moth by Kirsten Ciccarelli. This one is I think it's upper YA romance, and it's a witch and witch hunter romance as well. I haven't read Serpent and Dove, so I won't know how to do the comparison. Maybe I should read that at some point. But this is following a girl named Rune, who there was an uprising where the witch hunters took over and they rounded up all the witches and killed them. Rune's grandmother asks her to turn her in because her grandmother's a witch, so that then people will not suspect Rune and she will be trusted and she'll be safe. So she hands her grandmother in and has since become a vigilante known as the Crimson Moth, who is trying to help other witches. And we are also following the perspective of the love interest, which is Gideon, who is a witch hunter, and they need to get close to each other. She wants information from him so that she can save witches. He is told that it's possible that she could be the Crimson Moth. So together they need to fake date, but they actually fall in love with each other, but they can never be together because they're on opposing sides of this contention that is happening in this realm. So I'm very excited for those. The one I've heard the best about is Crimson Moth, so we'll see how I fall with it, but I am very excited to get into these three and hopefully I will have a good time. So yes, I'm going to start When the Moon Hatched. I'll probably start that today. I don't know if I will check in again today. We'll see how far in I get, but that's the plan. Hey vlog, it is now Monday, so I thought I would check in. I have read 200 pages already of When the Moon Hatched. I was going to update you when I'd read 100 pages, just, like taste test, see how I was liking the beginning. And then before you know it, I am blasting through 200 pages. It's such a weird one to say it's an easy read, but it is. It's got a very flowery writing. The author is unapologetic about it as well. They clearly wanted it to have this more ethereal vibe to it. It has a more whimsical fantasy vibe than it does Romantasy, which I'm here for. So far, we haven't had a huge amount of the Romantasy side. We've had only really the fantasy side. We're following this woman who is an assassin and she gets captured. We're also following a prince. We're following them as they kind of come together, and that's going to be the main pairing. At the moment, we've literally had her complete an assassination, get captured, and then she's going to face a trial. So at the moment, I don't have a huge amount to say other than not much has happened, but it feels like I have really gotten used to the world. I've really been introduced to the world. The world building is really interesting. Now, while I can't say that this story is particularly unique, the protagonist is very Selena Sardosian coded. I feel like our protagonist is potentially going to be Rhysand coded. So if you're a fan of Selena Sardosian from Throne of Glass and you're a fan of Rhysand from ACOTAR and wondered what the pairing between the two would look like, this could be the book for you. However, as I said, it does have a more flowery prose than you would normally get with Sarah J Maas. So while it's not the most unique thing and it's not the most innovative story, none of the setup is unique, none of the characters are unique, the world building is very creative. I found the world building really immersive. I'm really excited to just see what happens. I'm not impatient for anything. I'm not like, okay, come on, can we get this moving now? I've read 200 pages of not a huge amount happening, and at no point did I feel the length of it. At no point did I think, okay, come on, let's wrap this up, let's keep going, let's get on with this. And normally I read romance for like quick, easy, mindless fun, and therefore I want it to be sharp and snappy and quick so that it can retain my attention. Did not feel that way with this one at all. So it's feeling very interesting because it is feeling lovely on the brain. It's doing all the things I want a romantasy to do, but it's also doing things that I want a fantasy to do, and it really is converging the two. So I'm having a good time with it so far. I'm gonna head out this morning, and then when I get back, I'm gonna go plonk myself here, and I'm hopefully going to get a little bit more reading done, and I'll be able to update you later. So I am now on chapter 41. I actually got all like cozy and settled, had a blanket, had a cushion, have my box of chocolates that I've got myself because Valentine's chocolates are in, and I had my Kindle. But I'm reading When the Moon Hatched on Apple Books. So then I had to get back up and I had to go get my tablet so that I could read on there instead. It's just one of those days where I'm not a functional human being. I literally open the Apple Books app on my phone when I'm reading it on my phone, like when I was out earlier. No problem. As soon as I'm like, oh, I can read on a bigger screen now that I'm home, I pick up my Kindle because I'm an idiot. I am now on chapter 41 of When the Moon Hatched, and I am really enjoying this. The protagonist is a lot. Like, if you've read any Sarah J Maas books, if you like Sarah J Maas protagonists, you're gonna have no problem with Rave. But she's a lot. She's one of those characters is I won't accept help, I'll push everyone away, I'll be a bitch to anyone who comes near me, and I want to murder everyone. And all I'm going to do is constantly tell you how much I'm going to murder you. Our main dude is literally one of those that's acting like it's kind of kinky that she wants to kill him. He's got that Rhysand snarkiness. Also, at the same time, that Rhysand, like, I will forcefully care for you. Like, I'm going to give you soup, I'm going to give you a bath, I'm going to make sure that your wounds are healed kind of person. So that's an interesting one. Like, I'm not saying that this isn't tropey as fuck, because it's tropey as fuck. But I will say that I'm enjoying it anyway. What's interesting in this one is that you have like a really flowery narration and then really contemporary romantasy dialogue. The banter between them, the conversations, the way they talk to each other, the fact they swear to each other is all very modern. The contrast is noticeable. I'm not going to pretend it's not, but it doesn't bother me. And I don't really know why. I think because in a way, I don't actually find really formal romantic dialogue my vibe in Romantasy. I like it in like Regency, you know, reading Jane Austen, top tier. Reading it in this kind of vibe, I don't mind it being contemporary dialogue. I find it more immersive in a way, because it's like, yes, that's how I would talk to someone. And all of us do a little bit of a self-insert when we're reading a romance. So I am enjoying it. This part that I've just read, the last 150 pages, we have Khan and Rave, so the two main love interests, spending a lot more time together, spending time getting to know each other, and she's hot for him. Like, so we've not built love yet, we've built lust. He is quite mysterious. His motivations for helping her and protecting her are unknown to us at this present time. So I'm very curious to see that. The last chapter I just read, we've just entered a new area. We're going to get introduced to some new characters. I don't think that anything in this book is going to surprise me in the slightest. I am still very curious to see how this romance blossoms and how I feel about it. I don't know how many books are going to be in this series. I know that the next one is coming out at the end of 2025, and at this rate I will definitely be picking it up. I might need to get my hands on a physical copy of this one. That's how much I'm enjoying it, which is really nice. Nothing out of the ordinary, nothing that I could say to you, yes, this is the thing, this is the most exciting thing you'll ever read. But I do think that it's a good time, and that's what I'm here for. I did go out shopping earlier. I needed to get some bedding. So my parents are going to be staying at our house for a few days because my cousin is coming over, and they're going to stay at my parents' house so they can be with my nan. It's all very complicated. We've got some new bedding to go on the bed that they're going to stay in, and I also got some coffee. The place I normally go shopping doesn't stock the coffee that I like anymore, so I have gone to a different shop to try some things. So I bought the Starbucks white mocha, I bought the Starbucks vanilla, and the Nescafe mocha. I'm going to try those out and I'm going to see how I vibe with them, because I've already got caramel, but my favorite is mocha and my second favorite is vanilla, so I'm going to try those out. Today I tried the white chocolate one, and it was fine. I don't think I strained it enough though, so I need to strain it better. But other than that, it was a good time. So hopefully I will have a better time next time I need to maybe get some better sheets for straining, maybe. So I've had a good day, I've had a productive day, and now I'm gonna go tidy up my room because it's a mess. Like, there's laundry everywhere. So we're gonna go tackle that. I'm gonna go deal with that now. And I will hopefully get some more reading in this afternoon and tonight, and be able to check in either tonight or early tomorrow with more thoughts. Good morning vlog. I'm really sorry if you can hear my dishwasher in the background. We're going to have no electricity for a chunk of today, so I need to get it done before the electricity goes off. So now is the only time I can film, but it's also the only time that I can put my dishwasher on, and the two have coincided. So here we are. But I am now on chapter 67. I'm going to go by chapters because I realized when I was filming the previous two clips that the page count isn't going to add up, because obviously when I read on my tablet, there's a completely different page count to when I read on my phone. So like in the first clip, I read on my phone and I was like, I'm on page 200. And then I'd read a considerable amount of chapters, but then I was still only on page 200 and something because it was on my tablet. So I'm going to go by chapters instead. I'm now on chapter 67 of When the Moon Hatched. This part has dragged a little bit. It did lose a little bit of momentum. This part does the bit that I least like in all romances. The protagonist is gonna be dumb. The thing is, right, I understand. It's not that I don't understand, because it's pretty much always a trauma response. So you have the protagonist being what is basically dumb, but it's out of this need for self-preservation that stems directly from the fact that she is traumatized. So I understand, and it's almost always written that way so that it makes it more dramatic, but at the same time so you can understand the protagonist. I think the thing is that I've read too many fantasy romances that do that. I think Sarah J. Maas is like trauma queen. She loves talking about how traumatized her protagonists are, and therefore having our protagonists create a certain level of romantic drama on the basis of their trauma means that you hate them making stupid choices a little bit less. Sarah A. Parker has clearly seen how that works, has given a similar thing to our protagonist. We've had a couple of reveals in here, all of which I had predicted, one of which I didn't want to verbalize because obviously then I wouldn't be able to confirm either way. But from the first moment this might be not even alluded to, from the first moment this character's name is mentioned, I thought, oh, okay. Again, if you're a Sarah J. Maas fan, there is a lot of overlap here, but with a slightly more flowery prose. Oh, obviously this one's got dragons in it as well, which is awesome. So a lot of predictable things. This part did drag. It does the bit that I least like in romances, as I said, so it's slower. I'm hoping that now it will pick up. A thing got mentioned, and now I'm really worried that something else is gonna happen, and that's gonna annoy the fuck out of me, and I really don't want this to become one of those romances, but we'll see how it goes. I've got some time today to go read a bit more. Hopefully I'll be able to check in later with my final thoughts. Wish me luck, and I hope I like the end as much as I liked the beginning. Hey vlog, so it is Tuesday night and I have finished When the Moon Hatched. I actually have also started Guild, but I am like very few pages in, so I will check in later with that. But I have finished When the Moon Hatched. I have some interesting thoughts on this. Like I said, the middle part, there was a section that was kind of dragging, and I understand why. I do, because you need to process things. It's just that the decisions that were made were frustrating, and therefore it felt like it was dragging. That being said, this last part had so many reveals. It had so many things that it was showing you. It really did pay off all of the things that I'd been waiting for. So I did really enjoy that element, and this last part really did pull through the book for me. I'm going to give it 4 stars because, as I said, like, we did have a part that dragged in the middle there, and it's not, as I said, the most innovative thing in the world, but the prose was fantastic, the character work was great, and the world building was definitely the most standout thing for me, because as I said, the characters are basically kind of very Sarah J. Maas coded, but the world building was entirely unique. It was really interesting. I was so curious about all of these characters. I'm really excited to continue. Book 2 comes out at the end of the year, so I will almost certainly be picking that up. I'm really glad that I read it. So I think if you are at the part where it just kind of start to like slog a little bit, where there's just a little bit of like back and forth thing and not much happening, I will say it's definitely worth it. If it is the part where you're like, oh, I don't know, it's worth pushing through. For me personally anyway, a lot of reveals happening. None of the reveals were shocking. Actually, no, to be fair, there was one that was shocking because it was hardly ever mentioned and then just kind of comes out, but that wasn't, it not done in a bad way. It's not cheaply done, but it was something. So I called almost all of the reveals, and even that didn't tamper with my enjoyment. It felt like they were well foreshadowed for the most part and realistic, so I enjoyed it anyway. So now, as I said, I am starting Guild. I am like a few pages in. I think I'm like a chapter in, so I have no thoughts yet. I will wait until I'm a few more chapters in. Maybe in the morning I'll be able to update you a bit more on that. So hopefully I'll be able to come back with a bit more news on Guild later. Hey vlog, it's Wednesday morning, so I thought I would check in. I did manage to get to chapter 10 of Guild yesterday, so the first 100 pages. Not a lot has really happened yet. It's basically setting up her relationship with Midas. I've already, I think, said what this book is about, but it's a King Midas retelling where we are following it from the perspective of one of his concubines, who is his like favored concubine because she's been gold touched, so she's actually gold. She's like one of his prized possessions, and we're seeing, at least in his first 100 pages, her relationship with Midas and the way that he perceives her and the way that he treats her. So it's obvious that the romance is not going to be between her and Midas. I still have no idea who the romance is going to be with, but it was a slow start, but it was good because it was immersive. It gets you to know the world, gets you to know the situation that she's been living in. We get like brief mentions of her backstory without actually going in any kind of depth to it, but kind of enough to build her up as a person. And then, yes, as I said, like her relationship with Midas. So that's all been really good. I've been having a really good time with the writing style. It's been really good for my brain. But I have woken up this morning and I have a really bad migraine. I'm fairly certain it's a stress-related migraine. I'm not due on, I don't think. I need to check my calendar. So I none of the books that were on the TBR for this vlog are actually physical reads, and I need a physical read. So I've decided to pick up the only Romantasy that I have that is a physical read, and that is Fourth Wing by Rebecca Yarros. Now, this is one I was hesitant to put in a vlog, especially a vlog that I am like really excited about doing, because while I had already bought this book and therefore intend on reading it, I have since heard some not great things about Rebecca Yarros. I believe that she has talked a lot over the Gaelic community. She's used Scottish Gaelic in the book and then has not actually bothered to take any time to learn about the culture, the heritage, or the people, and worse yet, the pronunciation of the words that she's co-opted. I will leave a link to my friend Eleanor's TikTok, Eleanor Nikavata. She does a really good job of like talking about why it's unacceptable. She is Scottish. She is someone who is a firm and avid supporter of the re-inclusion of Scottish Gaelic into Scottish culture, as it is a dwindling language. So please go give her some love. Her main profile now is on TikTok, so I'll leave her linked. I don't know how I'm going to end up feeling about this. I don't know if I am going to continue this series. At the moment, I'm just needing a physical read. It's a Romantasy. I've heard good things. My friend Rachel over at the Reading Fairy, who I'll also leave linked down below, likes the first one and not the sequels. So I don't know if it will be worth me starting this series if the sequels don't live up to it, but we'll see. We'll see how I fare. It's a slightly chunkier one. It is 561 pages. For those of you who don't know, this is the story of Violet, who is disabled. I think she has a chronic illness of some kind. You're in this world where, you know, when you reach majority or whatever, you get kind of selected into a guild. She wants to go into the guild that her father is in, but her mother is really high up in the Dragon Riders Guild and insists that her daughter go in the Dragon Riders Guild anyway. Dragon Riders Guild is really, really dangerous, as it can be really deadly when you're first training, and obviously with her being chronically disabled, she is absolutely terrified that she's not going to make it through. But she abides by her mother's wishes and ends up joining the Dragon Riders anyway. I don't know anything else about it. I don't know what kind of romance we're looking at. I don't know the tropes. I know nothing else other than that it's Dragon Riders School and the chronically ill, disabled protagonist. I have heard that the representation of disability is really good, so at least there's that. But I think I'm going to go run myself a bath. It's literally morning, but I'm going to run myself a bath so that I can like detense a bit and have a nice relaxing time. I have some non-alcoholic champagne that I think I'm probably going to drink while I'm in the bath and luxuriate a little bit, because why on earth not? I swear whenever I'm in this lighting setup, I actually look like an AI version of myself, and I'm really sorry about that, but it's the best I got. So I did do some reading earlier today. I managed to read 114 pages. I am now on chapter 9, and I am interested in the world. I am interested in the story. I like the representation of disability we're having with our protagonist. I am not liking the writing style. I don't know why. I can't even pinpoint exactly what it is that I'm not liking, but I'm not liking the writing style at all. I am still okay kind of continuing because it's such an easy writing style, it doesn't matter. But I think this was probably the worst book to read right after When the Moon Hatched that has like a really like purposeful writing style. So there's that. It feels very lazy almost as a writing style. I don't know if that makes any sense. I can't pinpoint exactly what it is. I feel like once the actual romance really does kick in, because we've seen Xaden, who I know, at least in this first book, is the love interest, because I am on Instagram and I am on the internet, because I am not 90. So I know that Xaden is the love interest. I think once the romance kicks in, it's potentially going to be more exciting for me, and therefore the writing style won't matter. But I think in this introductory part, the part that's introducing characters, world, stakes, the whole shebang is trying to bring in so much, obviously, to kind of just get going. I am really noticing that I'm not liking the prose. So I'm hoping that once things start to get either a bit more action-packed or a bit more romantic, that I am going to be able to overlook the writing style a bit more. So that's really all I have to say at the moment. I know that stuff has happened, but like, I think once things get even meatier and stuff, it will allow me to still say something. I appreciate that obviously it's a long book, but at the end of the day, I'm not doing a spoilery review for this. So I don't know how much I'm going to be able to talk about, and I don't want it to just be, oh, the writing style is still crap, oh, the characters are still interesting. Like, I don't want a really wishy-washy review. So I think once more interesting things start happening, I can do things like talk about themes and tropes a bit better in a way that is still vague. So I'm gonna leave my thoughts at that for now, but I have started it. I'm gonna sit and read some more now, and I will hopefully check in a couple hours or whatever, and we'll see if I'm feeling any better about it. Hey vlog, it's just gone midnight, so I'm gonna go get some sleep. But I figured I'd check in because I have read a heck of a lot of Fourth Wing over the last couple of hours. I am now on page 280. There were some discussions had in here that I actually think were quite interesting. One of the ones that I really did appreciate is, without trying to give away spoilers, is the conversation around when men or boys are friends with women/girls. And they initially start out as friends, and then he develops feelings, and if she doesn't return them, the level of vitriol or anger or hatred that he will aim at her for not changing with him into a different mindset is something that I think almost every girl has experienced, and I think that it was an interesting conversation had in here. The romance is like any other fantasy romance. We have them where they're on opposing sides. So he is marked because his father led a rebellion that her mother quashed, so he kind of blames her mother because his father got executed. They kind of start out obviously at odds, and now they're in a position of trust. We have the dragons in here as well now, and I really do like the dragons. I do wish that we had a bit more of them, given kind of almost how pivotal they are, but I suspect that as it goes on, we're going to get more and more dragons, so that's fine. We have so many side characters in here that I'm really enjoying. Obviously, Rhiannon, who is Violet's best friend from quite early on in the book. She was in the last part that I read. That bond is really cool. But we also have Liam, who is a friend of Xaden's, who we're seeing more of due to reasons. And yeah, I mean, I like the depictions of friendship. I am interested to see where the romance blossoms. There's already a lot of sexual tension between the characters, so I presume that it's not going to be long now before the romance unfolds. I'm curious to see how that will fare for the rest of the series, because I don't know how many books are planned in the series. I think it's 5, so I don't know if we're going to just like have this one couple be a couple for the entire 5 books, which would be quite innovative. I mean, like, fair play to Rebecca Yarros if she can manage to pull that off and retain readers' interest. I personally quite like established relationships and watching them blossom and bloom throughout a series instead of like constant breakups and things, but obviously that's not quite the demographics preferences. I think I'm kind of an outlier there. I'm excited to continue, but at the same time, like, not super sucked in. Like I said, the writing style isn't really my vibe, so I'm not feeling like, oh, I need more words, please tell me more words, which is important, I suppose. I'm interested in the characters. The world building's cool. I just left it on a point where there's going to be clearly some kind of expansion on the politics and the happenings of the world and exactly how this world functions, so I'm kind of curious to see where that goes. I'm curious enough, essentially. I'm not loving it, but I'm mildly interested. At this rate, I don't know if I would bother picking up the sequels, even though I'm liking the characters, just because having heard that the sequels are not as good and I'm not loving this one, I can't imagine I would like the sequels, but we'll see how it ends. It might end on that kind of ending that I'm like, oh my god, I need the sequel now. So we'll see how I go. But at the moment, I'm having a decent enough time. Hey vlog, it is now Thursday. I have quite a busy day ahead of me. I went out shopping this morning and I now have been editing a vlog, and then I did my nails. And while I was doing my nails, I picked up Guild again. My migraine was still there this morning, but it's kind of abated now. And doing nails with an actual physical book is really difficult because you can't hold it open. While with this one, I just need to press a button, so it didn't matter. So it's like I'd read a chapter and then I'd paint a layer, and then I'd read a chapter and it would dry, and then I'd paint a layer, and it worked quite well. I am now on, I'm going to go by chapters again because Kindle pages is always weird. I am on chapter 20, so I've read up to chapter 20. I am really liking this. I decided that I'd continue with Guild instead of picking up Fourth Wing. I'll probably finish Guild and then go back to Fourth Wing at this point because I'm really liking this one. So we've had a little tiny bit more backstory on Oren, and we know now how she met Midas and a little bit of like where she comes from. And we've also seen the extent of Midas's plans and what he is attempting to do within these kingdoms. And then we now have her on the road. This is where she is going to either get left behind or kidnapped. At the rate that this is going and the way that people are behaving, I'm going to assume that she's going to get kidnapped. It's been really nice seeing her interact with other characters, especially ones that have like a slightly more positive vibe, because before this point we've seen her interact with men who basically want to sexually assault her, with Midas, who is definitely gaslighting her and he owns her, so it's already like a power imbalance and a really toxic relationship. And then the other concubines of Midas's and Midas's wife, who all obviously hate Oren because he favors her. And it really does show an interesting take on like women's toxicity and the way that women perceive each other, especially when they are all competing for a man because they're dependent on men. I really hope that more conversations around female hatred stemming from male dependency back when women had no rights is obviously something that supports the patriarchy. I'm really hoping that we have those conversations and we don't just have these women being bitches to each other. I really hope that we do have like an alliance form eventually. That would be really nice. For the most part, I am really liking this book. I really like the way it's written. It's really like compulsively readable. Obviously, I don't even know who the romance is with yet, and I'm 20 chapters in, not 19 chapters in. So it's really fascinating to me that I am so interested in this story, which is a fantasy romance. And at the moment, we've just had some political play, some world building, a bit of backstory, and I don't even know who the love interest is. It's not even that like we haven't had any romance begin to happen yet. I don't even know who he is. I don't know if we've met him yet. I know it's not Midas. I really hope it's not, because otherwise this series is really fucked up and I don't think I'll continue. I'm assuming it's not Midas, which means that I don't even know who the romantic lead is. I mean, it could be a couple of characters that we've met. There's one that I kind of vibe with. There's another one that I'm finding really cute, but I have no idea. Like, have we met him yet? What's happening with this? No clue. So I'm very curious to see how I end up feeling about the romantic side, because at the moment I haven't got an inkling of it. The world building is very cool. The stakes have been established now, and the politics and the political manipulations have begun to happen, which will be very curious to continue. And then the social commentary on classism is also absolutely fantastic. I'm really, really liking that as well. The notions around the distribution of prosperity I thought was really good. So I am hoping the social commentary will continue alongside the plot and the characters. I am going out tonight, so I'm hoping to read a little bit this afternoon before I go out, but I am going out to go watch Grease. I'm watching the stage performance of Grease with my dad. We're going out for dinner and we're going to go watch a musical. It's going to be great. I'm really excited. So I'm leaving at 5. I think I think I got that confirmed that I'm leaving at 5. So I need to go get ready for that and stuff. My kids will come home. I'll help them with homework, and then hopefully I'll be able to like just chill for an hour, and then I'll head out with my dad. So hopefully I'll read a bit more during that time, and then I will check in probably after I've gone to the musical, because I'd rather just read until the end. And then when I get home, I'll check in and let you know how the musical was and let you know how it's all gone. So I'm going to leave you at that for now, and I will hopefully check back in later with further news on Guild, and also equally importantly, news on Greece. Good morning vlog. I got in quite late last night in the end, so I didn't update you, and I'm updating you now. I haven't actually read anything yet today, but I will update you on what I read yesterday. I also, as I said, went to go see Grease, so I'll chat to you a little bit about that as well. You can skip ahead if that's not the vibe. I also got some Valentine's presents. I will show those in a little whole segment in a minute. So first of all, we'll talk about the books, because this is supposed to be a booktube channel, and I ended up reading until chapter 31, I think, and that section is where the action really began to kick in. It's where the stakes were really raised. It's where the actual, I imagine, core part of the plot of the rest of the series is going to begin to unfold. I think this story is really well written. It's really compulsively readable. Now, I will say, for anyone who is concerned about reading about any kind of sexual violence, know that it is very, very prevalent throughout the whole series, and it is very much on page. There are repeated and extensive amounts of threats of rape throughout the whole story. Please protect your mental health. Now, one of the things that I know a lot of people who are hesitant but not completely circumventing reading sexual assault is normally to do with how you feel in regards to the necessity and execution of the representation. Now, obviously, I cannot speak for everyone, but in this one, as much as I understand it's highlighting the society, I understand what it's trying to do, and I think the intent is evident. I personally do think it is excessive. I think that we would be able to understand the risks and the threats without it needing to be as abundant as it is. That being said, I don't think that it is harmful representation. As everyone knows, that content warnings like this, it depends on every person's individual situation and what they have experienced. From my personal experiences, I personally do not find it bad representation, but I do find that the level of excess, which I think the author is genuinely trying to use to prove how volatile women's treatment is, and it is a discussion focusing on the women, it is not focusing on the perpetrators or the men in their lives, which is also often used, and it's also not used necessarily as this sympathy, this poor wretched woman all of the time, which is another thing that I always take exception with. I do find that the amount that it is on the page is aggressive, so do bear that in mind. While I personally can handle it because I can perceive the intent, we're not actually seeing complete acts of rape at the moment on page, just many threats of it, lots of fear of it, which I think is really anxiety inducing. So again, please protect your mental health with this book. I think it amped up even more in this particular section that I am in at the moment, and there are even more conversations around like ownership of women, because several of these women are concubines, but not in the actual sense of concubines, because that's a different thing, but the way Westerners perceive the word concubine, of a woman who has very little rights and is owned by a man, and there are multiple of them, etc. There are important conversations being had, and I can see the intent, but I don't think that it is actually, I mean, obviously everyone says, content warnings for sexual assault. When you start reading it, you kind of get a gist, but I think the sheer amount of threats of sexual violence that occur in this book is a lot, and I have never heard anyone say that it is to this degree. I have heard people say, content warnings for sexual violence, it is graphic or quite intense. I've never heard anyone talk about how anxiety inducing the threat is of sexual violence in this series. And I know that for some people that can actually almost be worse because it's this looming pending thing throughout the reading experience. So do please obviously check content warnings, but I didn't feel the content warnings really actually gave me a full picture. So I'm happy to discuss with anyone if you want like more spoilery details on it to see if this is a series for you. I'm happy to discuss, because I do think this needs to be talked about a little bit more in regards to this series, because I was not prepared, and I've looked up content warnings and I have heard reviewers talk about it, and I still did not really feel prepared for the extent of it personally. That being said, I like Oren as a character. There are some other characters on here on page that I'm really enjoying, and I really enjoy the discussions around them as well. It's a good book. It's a lot more volatile than I think my mental health is in the space for at the moment as well, which potentially is why I'm feeling so about it. I am gonna go finish it this morning, hopefully, so that will be good. And then I will give you like my final thoughts on the book in a bit. For Greece, so I went to go watch the live production of Greece that is in my home city of Malaga, and we did watch it in Spanish. For anyone who is wanting maybe to go watch Greece, you like the songs and stuff, but at the same time there's some really antiquated values in there. I'm not sure how comfortable I will feel with that. At least the production that I watched has modernized the angle of the story. So while the story is pretty much exactly the same, and there are a lot of scenes that are the same, the focus, the angle of it is a bit different. The angle that the production I watched went with was more of like a coming of age, of understanding, of growing up, of maturing, of learning how to be better, because it's just, they're messy people because they're teenagers. And then you had a narrator in there who is basically saying the same things, like all these people are just messy as fuck because they're 17, 18 years old. And I really appreciated that. I really did. It wasn't just like, we've got a good girl and a bad guy and she has to like then go on a corruption arc. We didn't have any of that, and I really appreciated it. The singing was amazing. The harmonies in the background were absolutely so flipping tight. I was so happy. Had a great time. So this morning, my husband gave me my Valentine's presents. I will do a proper cute little haul section. But I told him on our anniversary, so I got us stuff that was for us to do together. And I said, I really like when there's an occasion, instead of just buying flowers or jewelry, he's never been that kind of guy, thank fuck, because that's just not who I am. No shame to anyone who does just want flowers and jewelry and stuff. You do you and you get spoiled, babe. It's just not my vibe, and he knows that. But I think he's never really known what I want out of a special occasion. I said to him, what I really want out of anniversaries and things like that is I want time. I want something that gives us time together. So for our anniversary, I got us a board game and I got us a Lego set. Now, we don't normally celebrate Valentine's, but we've been having such a shit couple of months. I've had horrific time with my hormones again. And then we had this horrible flu. I've been having a really horrible time with some of my personal life, with some of the interactions that I have had online. Some friends that I really cared about and really trusted turned out to not quite be as supportive as I'd hoped they'd be, and that got me down. So I've just had quite a few things that have been really upsetting lately, and we've just gotten better from this flu, and I was like, no, do you know what, we're going to celebrate Valentine's. And I didn't mean we're going to get each other presents. I just literally meant we're going to have a nice dinner, all of us, not just me and my husband, all my kids as well. We're going to have a nice dinner. We've got ourselves a cake, and then we're going to watch a movie. And then I've bought the Princess Bride board game for us to play. So we're going to watch Princess Bride, and then we're going to play the board game. He clearly listened to me when I said I want Valentine's, or I want any of the occasions to be about time spent together. Because he bought me Tiny Tina's Wonderland, which is one of the Borderlands games. Borderlands is our favourite game to play together. It's one of the few split screens that is still available. And we love playing split screen because obviously we've been together since we were 12. So we have a lot of memories attached to playing split screen back when that was a much more popular thing. So it's something we do together. So he bought us Tiny Tina's Wonderland so we can like play that together on split screen and like sit next to each other on the couch and play Borderlands games. And that is so cool. So I'm so happy. I bought myself some Kiko stuff as well. For those of you who don't know, Kiko Milano is a makeup shop. Kiko is absolutely my favorite makeup shop. It's where all of my makeup products are from, for anyone who gives a shit. I'm a skincare from The Body Shop and makeup from Kiko. It's so much easier for me to just, I will go in this one shop and buy the things I need. So I got myself some stuff from Kiko as well. I also bought myself a book, which arrived as well. So I'll do like a little like cute haul section somehow later and I'll insert it. I'm having a really nice morning. I had such a lovely night last night. I'm having such a lovely morning this morning. I had a great time with my dad chatting through stuff and we had a lovely dinner. We had Italian, but one of the things is we cook a lot of Italian food at home anyway. My dad's really good at cooking Italian food. So whenever we go to an Italian restaurant, we always try and go for something that we wouldn't normally eat at home. So we had a truffle ravioli and then we had this like tomatoey, mushroomy thing in cannelloni, which was really nice and we shared and I had a lovely time. I'm just having a wonderful time since yesterday evening all the way through to this morning. I'm in a much, much better place and not in like a crazy high serotonin boost, but I mean I am like I have a crazy high serotonin boost because I have had a wonderful time, but also it's just at the minute I'm at a point where I'm really appreciating all the little things. It's just like, yes, I needed time with just my family. I needed time to spend time with my dad. I might go chill with my mum for a bit today. I'm having dinner with my family later. And I don't want to celebrate Valentine's Day on a yearly basis as someone who's just like, oh, let's go on a cute date with my husband because our anniversary is in December. It's so close anyway. But having it as just like a time where I celebrate spending time with my family and people that I love is definitely an approach I would potentially take on for the next few years. And I love you to people in my life right now. So yeah, I'm in a much better headspace. Hopefully this really anxiety inducing book won't kill that momentum for me. And I'm gonna go drink my coffee, read my book, and then I'll haul my presents a little bit later and I'll check in once I'm done with Plated Prism. Hey vlog, I look like I haven't really moved, but it is nearly 2 p.m. now, so I figured I'd check in because I have in fact finished Guild. A few conversations about this book really. Calling this a fantasy romance is a big stretch. This first book, this is not a fantasy romance. There is no romance in this book at all. Now, this is why I assume people kind of refer to this book as almost being like a prequel because there is no romance. It's a setup for, I imagine, how the rest of the romance is going to play out in the rest of the series. But at the moment, there is no romance in here. So calling this one a fantasy romance in and of itself is inaccurate, but it is the first book in a fantasy romance series. So do with that what you will. My scrambled eggs have just pinged. Next conversation. I have a few divisive thoughts in regards to the portrayal of sex workers in here. We do have Midas's concubines or saddles as they're called, which is just the ickiest name. There are important conversations, for example, that not all sex work is rape. That is an important conversation and one that doesn't get talked about a lot when it comes to consent. So not all sex work is rape. The importance of sex work as the only viable form of income that low-class women had historically. And we also had depictions of how a sex worker's consent will vary from person to person. So just because they're a sex worker doesn't mean that they are inherently consenting to what is being done to them. Likewise, it does not mean that it is inherently rape. However, it depends on the circumstances of their actual sex work. If they are obligated to do so because of someone who has some kind of ownership over them, be it in a modern context, someone like a pimp, or someone in a historical context like this one, for example. Midas is the king, he has a lot of concubines, and he shares them. And the thing is like, even him having sex with them, whether or not it's consensual, will vary from situation to situation. And there are hints of a conversation around that, but I would have liked it to have done better. But I understand that it's a story and that's not the focus. However, my issue here is that there is an instance where someone who is unaccustomed to having sex, I don't know if they're a virgin or not, it's not been talked about, but someone who, at least throughout the duration of the book, has not had sex and is repeatedly saved from being forced to have sex, is then once again saved of having sex at the expense of someone who is a sex worker or a concubine. The way that it is done, one, it's not realistic, because this person, the person that's being saved, is constantly being told is the more desirable one to have sex with. So it makes no sense that this person has sex with this other woman first and saves her for later, because there are time constraints. So it doesn't make sense. So it was literally just, we are going to preserve this character at the expense of this character. And you're supposed to feel like it's disgusting, and the way it's depicted is disgusting, and it is depicted as rape, but it accidentally frames it in a way where it's telling you it would be more devastating if this person were assaulted instead of this person. And I really, really, really wholeheartedly did not like that. When you're having important conversations around women, around sex work, around female camaraderie, and it's trying really hard to have important conversations, that was something that felt shoehorned in, and it felt very deliberate, and I didn't like it. Not that I wanted either party, obviously, to suffer, but the fact that it went down the way it did, it genuinely did throw someone under the bus narratively for me personally, and that made me very uncomfortable. Now, this isn't a series I'm in a rush to continue, but it's not one I'm actively DNFing. I need some space from it. There are a lot of things in there that I just found a bit much, and the angle at which it was done, for me personally, wasn't the healthiest, and it was bringing up conversations and then not following through. And again, we're constantly prioritizing characters over others, and I didn't like that. It kind of almost undermines the message that's being had and the conversation that's being had, and I was very uncomfortable with not only obviously the scene, because the scene is supposed to be uncomfortable, but with the framing the author chose. I don't think badly of the author. I don't think it's that the author genuinely feels that way. It's just that it's, there's intent, and then there's actually what is depicted on the page. And while their intentions are clearly good, they are wanting to have important conversations, I think it was mishandled in this scene, and that made me really uncomfortable. So I don't know how I feel about this book. I haven't rated it yet. But now for the positives. I genuinely do think this was a really well written book. I do think that it's compulsively readable. As I said, I think it was trying to have some important conversations surrounding the likes of consent, especially with women who are dependent on a man, and therefore the position that puts them in, and the way that sex can be leveraged both ways. I think that was an important conversation. I really like the world building. I'm very excited to see that if I do decide to continue, because I think the world building is very interesting, and the magic system has me very, very curious. And we're clearly going to enter into some political machinations as well, which I think could be handled really well given the way that this author has already started playing with that. So there are loads of things that are really positive. I think the character work for the most part was really well done, and I found all of the characters believable and compulsively readable. There's not a huge amount of plot in this first one. It is a setup book, so I can't really comment too much as to the plot, but as I said, there are things in there that made me very uncomfortable, and it wasn't just depictions of scenes that are supposed to be uncomfortable. It was the way they were handled that was making me uncomfortable. So I'm a bit torn, but we'll see if I continue. So now I don't have it with me, but I'm going to go pick up Fourth Wing, read a bit more of that today. So hopefully I'll have a better time with it now that I'm coming back to it with a little bit more like, okay, no, some positivity would be quite nice right now. While I wasn't absolutely loving it and the writing style isn't necessarily gelling for me, we'll see how I feel about it towards the latter half of the book. So I will check back in hopefully this evening. I'm going to watch Princess Bride, so I don't know how much reading I'll get done, but hopefully I'll be able to check in and at least give you some thoughts. Hey vlog! So we just had our Valentine's dinner. We had spaghetti and meatballs and a Lady and the Tramp. Not really, but you know. We had some cake as well, and it's been really lovely. In between the last time I updated you and now, I have also made a decent amount of progress on Fourth Wing. I am now on chapter 30. So this is where the romance has really begun to amp up. Not necessarily romance immediately. There is a decent amount of tension in here. There's a lot of tension build up, which I thought was really good. I think that it was the kind of story that benefited from a lot of teasing and tension going on to keep me kind of interested. So that was a decent part of the story. I did enjoy it. We have a little bit of, I don't like the term, but akin to trauma porn, where you have this guy kind of like the dude from Outlander, just like Rhysand from A Court of Thorns and Roses. You have this dude who has this really, really traumatic past. He normally has scars. You'll be able to see the scars. She'll see him shirtless. He'll have scars all over his back. That kind of thing. He's damaged, but he's a good person. And the damage comes from him being a good person. That we get a lot in romance. So if that's your vibe, this guy definitely pulls through on that. And it's, you know, you have two damaged people coming together to make themselves whole kind of narrative, which, you know, is commonplace. I had a good time with this last bit. Again, not the biggest fan, not like the hugest fan of the writing style still. It's still not my vibe. So we'll see how the last like 100 or so pages treat me of this as to whether or not I continue on with the series. As it currently stands, I'm neither here nor there. We're gonna go watch Princess Bride and eat pizza because we had like a tiny portion of pasta because I wanted meatballs, he wanted pizza, and it was like, do you know what we could do? So I had a tiny bit of meatballs, and we're having a break, and then we're gonna have a bit of pizza, and it's gonna be great. So I will check back in tomorrow. I definitely won't check back in tonight now. I'll check back in tomorrow with hopefully final thoughts on Fourth Wing. Hey vlog, it is Saturday morning, so I thought I would check in. I didn't get time to check in last night, which I expected I wouldn't. I've been doing some reading this morning, so I have got quite a few updates, so we're just gonna crack on with it. We did watch Princess Bride last night, which was lovely. The kids actually liked it. The kids were just like the kid in the movie, like initially like, what are you making us watch? And then as soon as the duel happens, they're like, okay, I'll watch. It was so funny. But they had a good time with it. They've been quoting it all morning. I'm so proud. They've been dueling each other, which I shouldn't be proud of, but I am. Anyway, I have managed to finish Fourth Wing. I finished this last night, well, technically the early hours of this morning, but I don't know if I would bother continuing this series. I genuinely don't. I could be convinced, like if someone jumped into the comments down below and was like, it's banging, read it, I could be convinced. I thought the ending was fine. Like I didn't dislike the ending. It was a decent ending. I enjoy the romance. It's a fun romance. Obviously not fun in this, like it's got a lot of trauma attached to it, but it's a fun romance in terms of like how compulsively readable it is, how OTT it is in the best way possible. It's quite addictive. It really is. I think for me, there are so many romances that are in a similar vein to this, but that I feel I connect more with on an emotional level. Like, I liked this, I didn't love it. And there's so much fantasy romance out there that I don't know, given the reputation that books 2 and 3 have, I don't know if I would bother investing my time or my money in the sequels, because everyone loved this book. When it came out, everyone loved it. I never hear a bad thing about Fourth Wing, apart from people who dismiss fantasy romance. I don't hear bad things about this. I mean, obviously there are people out there, I imagine, that love fantasy romance that are just fine with this, but it's not one that you hear being very divisive within the community. The 2 sequels that have come out have been. I know a lot of people who gave this one like 5 stars, then gave, what's the second one, Iron Flame, like 3 stars, and then, you know, it's kind of building back up with Onyx Storm, where some people have given it a 4-star. But even then, it's still not come back to what this was. But this is a 3-star read for me. Again, the writing style, just, it's not my vibe. And, you know, I just didn't connect with it on any kind of emotional level. It was fun. I read this for fun. And I think if I'd heard that the sequels were equal to this or superior to this, I would definitely continue. But my hesitation, my reticence comes from the fact that I have heard that the sequels are not as good. And given that, you know, that's coming from people who gave this 5 stars, I suspect the sequels for me are going to be like 2-star reads. Why would I sign myself up for that? So it's not one that I disliked. I had a fun time, just not one that I am hugely invested in. And that's why I'm doing this. I'm reading a load of the popular things to see what my vibes are, see what I'm preferring. Hopefully the series picks up for everyone else. I think it's going to be a 5-book series in total. So hopefully books 4 and 5 really pull through for the fans of this, but it's just not my vibe. And if it were an author that I particularly wanted to support, again, it'd be maybe something to consider. She's not really an author I feel strongly about supporting, given her treatment of Gallic people, so I'm not fussed either way, and I just think that I'll probably leave it at this one. Which leads me to the fact that I have also started The Crimson Moth by Kirsten Ciccarelli, and this one I'm not that far in. I am and I'm not. I'm on chapter 14. So we've had a lot of like basically we've had what's on the back of the book. We've had the synopsis, we've had where she's had to hand her grandmother in so that she can garner the trust of the witch hunters. We've had the witch hunters have taken over the societal system, they've dethroned the witches who had become abusive. There's no part of the story that is justifying the witches of these poor hapless beings. And at the same time, we haven't got the idea that all witches are evil. That's kind of the notion, and I liked the nuance there. The character seems to be quite interesting. She has got proper vigilante superhero vibes, which was very cool to be reading in a fantasy. Another thing that I really like is she's kind of got the Bruce Wayne vibe of being high class in their real life and then rough and tumble vigilante side. In her case, she's like this really vapid socialite. She believes wholeheartedly in the system. That's why she handed her grandmother in, and she's doing everything right? And I really like that. She's kind of giving me the popular it girl that you had in like really bad early 2000s movies that were like, girls are vapid and moron if they're popular. It kind of had that vibe, and she's playing that so well, and the way that plays off of them. But I do actually quite like Gideon's perspective. I was hesitant about that, but we've got a lot of depth in this character. I really am vibing with him as a person, as a character, and I'm really liking that both of them feel like people with depth and nuance already. So I'm very excited to see then, once they're spending more time together, how that's going to build and how the tensions will build, and that you're going to care so deeply about both of them and kind of hate that they're lying to each other, but understand why they're lying to each other. So many things that are going to, I think, make it complicated, but not in a way that is actually going to throw either character under the bus. I think the societal circumstances that they are in is going to be what divides them, instead of any one character being an idiot, which happens most of the time. So I'm very, very excited for that. I will hopefully give you a further update on that. Maybe tonight. I'm going to play some Borderlands now, and then I'll hopefully be able to check in later with a bit more info on Crimson Moth. And then maybe once I've read all of these books, since I'm now on my last one for this vlog, I can rank them for you and see which one I'm most likely to continue. Hey vlog, it is Sunday morning. I have a quick update really. I got to chapter 30 yesterday of Crimson Moth. I'm really liking the writing style. It's got a very good writing style. I'm really enjoying the characters, the world and the setting, and I'm really enjoying how the character dynamics are built individually. I do like a dual POV romance because I like seeing his thoughts and the way that he feels about her. Obviously it kind of almost adds to the romance as well. So I'm really enjoying that aspect, and I'm liking seeing that unfold, and therefore you can see their common ground that they themselves can't see yet and things like that, which I think is great. I am not particularly addicted to the book, which a lot of the time I read romance, as I've said before, is like a quick fun getaway, and therefore normally a more addictive quality in the storytelling is preferable. Normally I want to just be like, okay, I can't stop, I want to devour this. Granted, I am very distracted at the moment. Obviously, you know, we did loads of Princess Bride stuff. I am currently playing Tiny Tina's Wonderland, even though I said I wouldn't start until next week, and things like that. So I am distracted elsewhere, which is obviously not benefiting the book. And obviously this is the 4th romance I've read in a row, so any of the overlap that it has with the other ones, it's kind of starting to wear. But I do think that there is something about this book that is just not sucking me into the point where I'm like, oh my god, this is impeccable, this is the best thing. I was talking to my friend Rachel, who I'll leave linked down below. I think I already mentioned her in 4th Wing. We were talking about romances and kind of saying how there are certain ones that it's like, it doesn't matter if it's actually not a good book, like not well written, not particularly nuanced, but it's just super addictive and it's just so much fun. That I have felt definitely with reading like Sarah J Maas books. I felt that when reading the Wilderwood series by Hannah Witten. Like sometimes it's just so addictive, you get sucked in and it's like, yes, this is what I want out of romance. Anytime I read Harley LaRue, I feel that way. I feel like Harley LaRue probably has a lot more nuance and depth than the other two, but like, there are just certain romances I'm like, yes, I need more of this. This is exactly what I want to be reading. And I'm not feeling that with this one. So while I'm having a good time with it, and it's really, really, really well written, and like I said, the characters are awesome. The characters are really well written. I'm not feeling like I can't put it down. At the moment, with how it's going, it's looking like a really solid 4-star read. It's just, I'm not compelled to read it to the point where I need to finish it in 24 hours, like I do with other romances. You know, I read Kingdom of Ash, the last Throne of Glass book, which is over 900 pages. I read in 48 hours. This one is also going to take me 48 hours and 400 pages. You know, it's just one of those things where it's like just not as addictive. And I think that's the thing that I've had with this vlog, is that I've been looking for that feeling, that sensation of just, I cannot put this down. I'll be up until 3 in the morning to read this because I can't put it down. I've not found that in any of these, and given that these are the most popular ones, I'm like a bit sad about that, but we'll see. You know, we'll see how I fare with the latter half of this. I'm now halfway through. I think we're going to start to get a little bit more reveals and a little bit more emotional depth as the story goes on. So you never know, it might still suck me in. It's just none of them have quite given me that feeling that I've been searching for, which is kind of a shame. But still having a fantastic time. So that's the important thing. So we'll see by the end of the book if I still feel the same way. Hey vlog, it is now evening. I have made some progress with reading. I have managed to clean my whole house, which was really good. I have my cousin coming to stay with us tomorrow. Want the whole house clean, ready for that, which is going to be very exciting. I'm not quite sure how I'm going to navigate next week's vlog yet, but I will figure it out. I have also made a load of progress with Crimson Moth. I am now on chapter 44, which leaves me with like 100-ish pages to the end. I'm really appreciating this book now. I really do appreciate the conversations this book's trying to have in regards to trauma, in regards to abuse, especially because we actually have a male victim of abuse, which we don't see often. And if we do, this is going to sound really weird, but oftentimes it's almost not sexualized but romanticized, that then creates even more sexual tension. So for example, things like, you'll have guys who've been like whipped and then they have scars on their back, and initially it's like this endearing, you poor soul, but then there'll be like gentle caressing of the scars that then becomes erotic, and like that can get a bit weird. This isn't that. This is emotional trauma that is not sensationalized, is not romanticized, is not eroticized, and it is simply discussed as part of the character's personhood. And I really, really appreciated that. We also have a very interesting dynamic, because I had believed that this had love triangle going on, but in a way that the protagonist clearly preferred one, but that the other then wasn't going to take it very well, or whatever. A lot of what you see in especially like 2010 YA, that is not the case. There is a complex and complicated interpersonal relationship going on between several of these characters, and then their feelings get involved and it gets complicated because it's actually no one's fault. I don't actually fault any one person in this. A lot of the time with a love triangle, you have this girl who's just like, do I choose the dark haired guy or the blonde haired guy? I don't know. That's not really the case here. It is someone that she is supposed to hate but that has grown to understand, and someone that has been very kind to her and there for her all of this time, and someone that she can be her true self with. And then their dynamic, the dynamic between the two guys, is also not as simplistic as just, oh, I hate you because you've got a crush on my girl. And none of that is happening either. And the guys in turn feel guilty about things with each other as well as with her, and it's all very layered and nuanced and complex, and I really, really do appreciate that. So in terms of like layering, in terms of crafting, I'm sorry if you can hear my kids, they live here, who knew? In terms of crafting, it is absolutely fantastic. Actually, I think it's one of the best YA stories that I have read in a really long time, because it does not overcomplicate the plot, it does not overcomplicate the prose, but at the same time has complex and nuanced conversations. So I'm really appreciating that about this book. I just haven't fallen in love with the book. I have a deep-seated appreciation that is growing as I read. So it's shaping up to be a really, really good book. I'm really glad that I've read. I just wish it was one that I fell head over heels for a little bit more. Hey vlog, it is now Monday, so I figured I would check in and give you my final thoughts on Crimson Moth, and then as I said, I can rank up the books that I read. So Crimson Moth, I had a really good time with this. I really did. I think it got better and better as the book went on. I really did think that Gideon's character especially had so many more layers than you get from a lot of YA fantasy romance male leads, and getting his perspective really did contribute to that as well. I think some really important conversations were had, and the way that societal change isn't necessarily good but isn't necessarily bad, that there was nuance to it. It's sometimes the society that you have is broken, but then the way that revolution happens can also be harmful, and there were conversations around that I thought were fascinating. So yeah, I really enjoyed it. Really loved, as I said, the way the like pseudo love triangle component worked as well. I am very excited to continue, so I will definitely be picking up the book too. That being said, I ended up giving Crimson Moth 4 stars. So let's go through the ranking. So at the very bottom, I do have Fourth Wing, which ended up coming out at 3 stars. I did still enjoy this. I did have a really good time with it. Don't think I'm going to continue on with the series. I think I'll see once the whole series is concluded, like once all 5 books are out, if books 4 and 5 end up being like the best thing anyone's ever read. But at the moment, I'm not going to be continuing this series, and it was decent time, but nothing remarkable to me personally. Coming in 3rd place, I have got Guild, just because while it was, like I said, trying to have some really important conversations, while we did have a lot of really fantastic world building, I was really invested in the writing style. I did think that the characters were really well crafted. I think that there were some problematic elements in there that were not handled the best way possible. Now, obviously, this is quite subjective anyway when it comes to personal experiences with something like this. It's just something that I personally really did struggle with in that book, and while I would potentially continue on with the series, I definitely need a break from it. Coming in second place, I do have The Crimson Moth. I definitely will be continuing on with the series, especially since it's only a duology anyway. I had a really good time with it, and I think that it got better and better as it went on. So while to begin with, I was just like, this is interesting. By the end of it, I was really, really invested. So I'm really excited for the sequel. And then coming in first place is When the Moon Hatched by Sarah A. Parker. This one just gave me so many things that I love about Romantasy. All the things that I look for in my Romantasy were present there, which was fantastic. So I'm really glad that I read this one. And while it wasn't necessarily as addictive, because it did slog a little bit in the middle there, the beginning and the end were everything I want out of fantasy romance. So I'm really hoping that the sequel is a little bit more concise or has more components to it that make up for the size, and I can really sink my teeth in, because it was such a good balance of fantasy and romance in a way I enjoy. While I can understand the writing style isn't going to be for everyone, because it's not got that like really super pacey quality that a lot of romances has, I really loved it. I had a great time with it. But there you go. That is the end of this vlog. That is the end of my Romantasy vlog. I had a great time. I've had a good week. Obviously, I know I've talked about my mental health a lot throughout this vlog, and it's been a weird week, I think, for everyone in the book community anyway, and then I've just been having a weird time with being ill and stuff. I do feel so much better, I think, between reading the romances that are just quite uplifting and are really good mental health spaces. Apart from Guild, that wasn't the best mental health space. It's a really good environment for my brain, I think, to just be reading a lot of fun romances. I really did enjoy that. And then, you know, pampering myself. I'm really glad that we actually bothered to celebrate Valentine's. I think we really needed it this year, and it was lovely, and we've all felt the better for it. I'm really happy with how this week has gone, and I feel so much better. Let me know if you did anything for Valentine's, and let me know what your favorite fantasy romance is, because I am always on the prowl for trying out new fantasy romances, so let me know. That is all for me for today, so thank you ever so much for watching, and I will hopefully catch you in another one soon.